Welcome to our webinar on how to refresh your customer experience to drive engagement and revenue with Forrester. I'm Sunny, and I'm part of the European marketing team based out of our UK office in London. I'll be hosting this webinar along with our speakers. Now, this is your opportunity to ask your questions. Throughout this webinar, you can post your questions in the question pane, which you should be able to see on your screen. We will go and answer as many questions as we possibly can during our Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. If we don't get round to answering all of them, don't worry. We will follow up with you after this webinar. There will also be a recording which will be sent out. Now, I just want to have a really quick run through of the agenda. We're going to kick off with demands of the modern customer. We'll then talk about the importance of introducing omnichannel into your customer experience strategy. We'll then share some insights into the importance of using the right chatbot at the right time to help maximize engagement. And then we'll look into how all of this can come together to generate a return on engagement that will impact the bottom line revenue. And then finally, we'll host a Q&A where you get the chance to get your questions answered. Now, I'd like to introduce our speakers. So kicking off with Arun Mani. Arun is the European Managing Director at Freshworks. Arun's been in the game for about 20 years now in various leadership roles. He served as a C-level strategy advisor for both McKinsey and Accenture, and at Freshworks, Arun heads up our European and UK operations. Now, I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker, Kate Leggett. Kate is the VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. She's a leading expert on CRM and customer experience. And for those of you who don't know who Forrester are one of the most influential research and advisory firms in the world. They work with business and technology leaders to develop customer-focused strategies that drive growth. Kate, we're really excited to have you on air. Thank you for joining us. If you'd both like to just say hello really quickly.
Hi there, and thanks for all of you to take an hour out of your time to listen to Arun and I speak. We're delighted to be here.
Awesome. Right, I'm now going to hand over to Arun, who's going to give you a really quick insight into who Freshworks are and kick off our first session. Arun, over to you.
Thanks, Sunny. First of all, thanks everybody to be joining us today. Really excited, and very excited to be presenting this with Kate. And before we jump into our topic today, I just want to give a brief overview of who we are. Freshworks, we are 8 years old. We're still a private company with about 250 million in funding from some of the marquee investors across the world, including Capital G, which is Google, Axel, Sequoia, and Tiger. We've been in a hyper growth mode, somewhere around like 7 countries. We have offices today, including 4 in Europe, 1 in the US. We are headquartered in San Bruno, California. But the bulk of our development and leadership talent is in Chennai in India. And we are recently opening our offices worldwide, including in APAC territory. So all this comes together to have a truly global product breadth in terms of what we present today. And that's used by something like 150,000 businesses across 120 countries. Next slide, Sunny. About us, our vision, which we are very proud and excited to share, is we want to enable every team in every company to deliver moments of wow for their end customers. These customers could be external customers. This could also be internal customers who are employees for various divisions and functional teams. And next slide, please. And our core belief that powers our everyday operations and also how we build our products is we firmly believe that if you have happy employees, they will deliver above and beyond to create happy customers and deliver those moments of wow for them on a regular basis. So with that, I want to just quickly introduce our portfolio of products, which are built with this idea of making the employees happy. Whoever is using the tool suite, can we make it simpler for them? And we have a suite of tools that cuts across various elements. all the way from marketing to sales to support to service management and HR. And all this comes together and enable the teams that are using these products to be happy users of the products. Their jobs are hard as it is. We want to make sure they don't have to do this extra 5 clicks or make it very difficult to find. And this has been the core ethos of the company. And today, we are going to specifically talk about areas around customer engagement. So, Sunny, next slide, please. So before we talk about, let's understand what's happening here. The modern customer, and you've probably heard this word thrown around quite a bit around like what's happening, what's changing. And we want to share 2 or 3 factoids to actually bolster what we see from our standpoint. Number 1, overall, the customers today are demanding. In a way, they have transformed. There is no going back to what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But 1, the customers are having very, very high service expectations. And almost 47% of them basically say they would like their favorite brands to actually step up in terms of their expectations. And 34% basically said they want service anywhere, anytime. So this is some kind of an omnipresent customer. They basically expect services to be delivered pretty much anytime, regardless of your business hours or what you're located. And the third thing is the omnichannel customer. These customers cannot be channeled into one channel and ask them to pick up the phone and talk to you, but they talk about you anywhere. They want to engage with you in any channel. So it is the responsibility of the organizations to actually reach out to them. And in this scenario of an omnipresent, omni-channel customer whose expectations are high, what exactly businesses are doing? And this is the biggest challenge that we have today. And just want to pose a question to Kate here. When the customers are changing or transforming like this, what exactly do they value today?
That's a really good question. And so what I always say is, it's to your point of that your customers have high service expectations and they expect to be instantly connected to an answer or to a resolution over any channel that they use that makes sense to them at that particular moment in time. And so what I always think of it as is they expect easy experiences. Again, experiences with little friction over any channel that they want to use. They also want to be effectively supported. That means accurate, relevant, complete answers to their questions, so they don't have to recontact you to follow up. And at the end of the day, they want to walk away from that interaction feeling good about having done business with you. And what that means is that the customer service organization has to provide a resolution or an answer in context of what the customer is doing and highly personal. And so what we say, to just go a step further, is that these customer experiences really rest on being able to deliver good employee experiences, which means that your front office workers, your agents in this case, have to be empowered with the right data, the insights that they need to be able to deliver these experiences in line with what your customers expect. For example, they need to get the work done in a productive way, which means that they need to have real-time access to customer data, to product data, to asset data. They have to have the right knowledge, right content, so that they can answer the question or fix the reported problem. They need to be focused on the right and the most important work. And they also need to be able to easily collaborate internally and externally to do the right thing for the customer. And if you are able to support your agents with these great employee experiences, it leads to you being able to deliver great customer experiences. And ultimately, why are customer experiences so important? Why is it so important to understand that modern customer? It's because if you deliver experiences in line with the modern customer, like we'll see on the next slide, is that great customer experiences has a quantifiable impact to top line revenue. A loyal customer will stay with you longer. It reduces their churn. They'll buy more from you, which increases their average customer lifetime value. And they will also recommend your products, your companies, to their network. And this influences second order sales. And so what we see at Foresight, we have lots of data over 40 different industries, is that we see this correlation between better customer experiences and top line revenue in every industry and every geography that we have data on. So understanding the modern customer is fundamental to being able to deliver great service. So over to you.
Kate, thanks for setting the stage for explaining the why and the how. I just want to do deep dive on two areas that I think are kind of the buzzwords, and we kind of alluded to also the customers have transformed message. The first and foremost is the omni-channel myth. Can you go back to the next slide, Sunny? So overall, what we hear is the customers are everywhere and companies are rushing to provide experiences across different channels. So, but oftentimes what we learn, next slide, is companies overall struggle to deliver the best experience. And here are some stats I can just share, is customers want answers really, really fast. In fact, a survey says almost 32% of customers want an answer within 30 minutes. And about 57% of customers expect the same turnaround, regardless whether it's a night or a weekend. And a recent Accenture survey talked about 89% of customers, they get frustrated when they have to repeat their issues to multiple representatives, which we all have experience with. And about 87% of customers think their brands need to put more effort into providing seamless experience. Net, all it tells us is, as the companies rush to provide omnichannel experience, it's not very clear whether they are delivering the business objectives. So here I would like to do a quick poll for the audience. What channels do you currently use to enable your customers to reach out to you? We're just given a list of few, pick all that apply. And more importantly, also share whether if your current strategy of providing this omni-channel offering to your customers helps deliver your business goals.
Yep, sharing now.
Thank you. So about 39% of what we hear from our audience today is saying they're providing all of the channels that we have listed here. And about only 20% of them basically say the current strategy helps you deliver your business objectives. So this is in line with what we're hearing most of the time. So let's just go into some of the challenges that we see. Number one, what we see is sourcing. So customers are talking about you. They want to talk to you across different channels. Should we provide that channel to them? It really depends. And we have seen scenarios where it's completely optimal. In some cases, it's not. So this is a whole scenario of a paradox of choice. Like, when is more the right thing, or is less is more here? And the second thing that what we notice often is, in a rush to provide different channels and services, companies are often forced to use different tools, and often they are create a siloed view of data of the customer in different places. In fact, about conversations about the same particular topic or an issue, and thereby perpetuating this issue of your elusive reach towards to get to a single view of a customer gets actually even more difficult. And what's the impact? Go to the next one. is what we see here is agents who tend to work on a multi-channel, omni-channel environment often don't have full context. And this leads to all kinds of issues where customers have to repeat themselves, context is lost, and overall it leads to general frustration or lack of satisfaction, especially in a scenario of a customer having heightened expectations. So why should you solve this? And here's an interesting stat. By 2020, customer experience is expected to overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator. And companies with strong omni-channel experience is going to retain about 89% of their customers. Now, clearly the customers have changed, moved on, and there's no going back. But for organizations to change, there is this whole thing around, when is the organization ready to change? What about the buy-in to get the people to move and the tools to catch up? So what's your thinking on this, Kate? How are things happening here on the organizational side?
Okay, so what I think about upfront is you need to better understand your customer. You need to be able to deliver those experiences in line with customer expectations, because ultimately it's all about money. If you deliver experiences in line with customer expectations, they'll stay with you longer, they'll buy more from you, they will serve as an advocate, and all of this drives revenue. So how do you deliver these experiences? And so the first thing I always tell organizations to do is like what we did on the poll, is understand the channels that your customers are using, as well as the order that they're using the channels in. So on the next slide, what you see is that customers tend to use, and this is some of our overarching data from Forrester that says that customers tend to use self-service as a first point of contact with a company. They're using your FAQs, your content from your knowledge base, but they're also using forums. They're also using IVRs. They're using chatbots. They're accessing self-service content from the web, as well as from mobile experiences. And why are your customers using self-service? Because if it's done right, it lets your customers engage with you with very little friction, to be able, like Arun said, valuing a customer's time is the most important thing a company can do to provide them with great service. It allows them to get that right answer to the question or get their issue quickly resolved. But interactions, as we all know, it's not only about self-service. It's also being able to support the customer if they want to interact with an agent. And so what you see on the next slide is that, again, if your customers aren't able to find what they're looking for by self-service, they're using agent-assisted channels. They're still calling you. Phone calls take the first place in terms of popularity, followed by digital channels like chat. And then what you also have to know is that these agent-assisted interactions, we look at them as, or we think of them as escalation calls, because these are or escalation contacts. These are the issues that weren't solved by self-service. So they're the harder questions, or perhaps it's an exception, or it's a corner case. It's an issue that, again, you don't have, you're not able to solve by a self-service. So that's the first thing you do. You understand the way that your customers want to interact with you, and it's very much brand. It's the choice of channels is very dependent on the industry that you're in, the industry vertical that you're in. The second thing that you want to do is understand your customer's journey. So sometimes customers use multiple channels to contact a company. They start a conversation in one channel, like a social channel, and then they move it to another channel. And then what you're looking at on the screen here is this very complex customer journey that spans both phone calls and digital touch points, as well as an in-person interaction. And as well, understand that your customers may be using more than one channel at the same time. You may be calling a company and accessing their knowledge base at the same time as an authenticated user. And so, like Arun said, as they cross channels, they want companies to understand who they are, where they are in the journey, what they've communicated to the company, so they don't have to repeat the information that they've already given to the company. And then just understand as well that voice calls and your agent-assisted calls are really escalation calls. These are the difficult calls. Again, they're the ones that, like I said, they're not solved by self-service, but as well, understand the emotion of your customer. Your customer has tried to self-serve. They've had their time wasted because they've had to navigate an IVR, or they've tried to look for an answer on your customer service page. And so these agent-assisted interactions start with a frustrated customer. It also starts sometimes with an angry customer who feels that their time has been wasted because they've had to authenticate on your website, and then they've had to re-authenticate when they've called you up again, and then they've had to wait in queue to be connected to an agent, and they have a pressing issue. For example, perhaps they don't understand why their claim has been denied. They have this pressing issue that they need an answer to, and yet they've been put through all these hurdles to get connected to the right agent. So what you need to do is make sure that you choose the right technologies to support your agents being able to resolve these harder interactions. And on the next slide, I show, I think of an agent as being technologically augmented, where the customer service agent needs to understand the customer, the context, the journey as quickly as possible. They also have to understand, for example, the emotional state of the customer, the customer angry or anxious, to be able to do the right thing for the customer, to be able to meet the customer where they are. They also may need to be able to be led through processes. They may need to rely on, for example, a chatbot to help them discover and surface the right policy information, for example, or the right content or the right data that they need to be able to answer a customer's question. So that's the way that I think about how do you make the business case. Start by understanding your customer, the expectations, the journey, but as well think about the employee experience. Understand what the agent needs to be able to help resolve those harder calls, the harder digital interactions that come to them.
Kate, this is, I think, I'm glad you mentioned the chatbots here, because I want to tie it back to one of the original trends that we captured here is the customers are, their expectations are high, short timelines and so on. And what you are presenting is also pretty ambitious in that kind of a scenario where the expectations is rising, what we need to deliver is also increasing. Chatbots comes to play a very important role, but there is this myth about where can we apply chatbots? Where are they today in terms of maturity? You talked about authentication, information collection, or walking them through the process. Can you shed some light on what you're thinking on how to increase the chat or use the chatbot at the right place at the right time?
Sure. So to be able to answer that question, I always go to data. First of all, we know that you make it easier for your customers to contact you. They will contact you. The easier you make it, the more your customers will contact you. And they will contact you over an increasing number of channels. But the way that they contact you is changing. So on the screen here, you're actually looking at some data from Dimension Data's global benchmarking report that surveyed over 1,000 contact center decision makers located, again, globally. So look at the top bar. This is what contact center decision makers are telling us. So more than half of these contact center decision makers are projecting that their voice volumes will drop. Now, if you look at the bottom bar that I've highlighted in the next screen, what you can see is that these contact center decision makers expect automated interactions, digital interactions to increase. Let's go to the next slide. So what you're, again, here you're seeing in the red box, 71% saying that fully automated volumes will increase. Digital assisted service volumes will increase. And so this is in line with what we've been saying in the webinar so far. Again, your customers want their time to be valued. As Arun said, they're impatient. They want to be effectively supported. They want a quick answer to their questions, quick resolution, and this is perfect for fully to do in a self-service modality. But then what you need to understand is where chatbots actually do a great job, deliver the experience that your customers expect, because not all interactions are suitable for to be handled by chatbots. So what you need to know is, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of effort and investments going on in chatbots. And the capabilities of chatbots are increasing every day. But today, chatbots do a really good job for those simple inquiries, simple transactions. And if you look at the screen, those are the interactions that I have in the bottom part of the screen. A simple inventory search, being able to answer a simple question, being able to give you information like, what time is my flight taking off? What's my gate? Being able to do these one-step ordering processes. But again, where they're less suited are to be able to help with, for example, large consultative purchases where there needs to be a discovery of the customer's situation, of their intent, of their needs, and be able to recommend a product or a solution that's highly targeted to the customer, or to be able to do deep product research, or to be able to handle complex payments. So the two takeaways from what I've said before I move to the next slide. First of all, realize that digital and assisted interaction volumes are projected to increase because your customers are contacting you more, and chatbots are very well suited for the straightforward tasks. They're less suited for the more complex tasks that require analysis or require insights. But it's not one or the other. It's actually, it's not agents only or bots only. It's actually agents and chatbots working together to use each other's advantage. And this is what this graphic is showing on the screen. So on the left are the tasks, for example, understanding the multi-channel context or sensing or learning. The yellow circles show whether these tasks are more suited for bots or for humans. And then the little icons inside the yellow circles, like pause and play, indicate whether this task is moving from humans to bots and the velocity of that change. And again, so what you see on this screen, it's going into more detail than what I showed on the other graphic, is again, chatbots are good at repetitive data entry, at task execution, at pattern matching, at searching for data. They're less good at sensing, at reasoning, at understanding context. And this is all the things that agents are good at. They're good at collaboration. They're good at analyzing sentiment. They're good at having the right conversation with a customer, at connecting emotionally. So again, it's not one or the other. It's not bots versus humans. It's actually working together. And we actually think of 3 models where chatbots can work together. First of all, we think of chatbots as being customer-facing. Again, to be able to allow customers to engage with a company with little friction and in an effortless way. We think of chatbots being agent-facing. Again, to help assist the agent, to help make them more productive. For example, if an agent is looking for data or content, to be able to surface that content at the right time so that the agent can focus on the conversation that they're having with a customer instead of having to put them on hold and then go look for the information that they need. And then we think about these processes for bots and agents work together. For example, the bot may be collecting information from the customer and then pass this data that they've collected to the agent so that the agent fully understands the customer and again, and solve the customer's issue. And so in this example, the bots are valuing the agent's time, again, letting them focus on once they've collected all the data to be able to figure out the right resolution for their particular question or issue. And then on the next slide, what I have are just some ROI of chatbots. It's not only about issue deflection, although that is a driver for many companies who are looking to deploy chatbots, but as well, they're deploying chatbots. It can give you many more benefits than just issue deflection. For example, what you can see is that chatbots can help the customer, the agent, for example, be more productive. Again, if the chatbot and the agent are working together, agents can handle, for example, 5 or 6 concurrent chats, where typically they can only handle 2 or 3 chats. You can also mine these chatbot interactions that are escalated to chat and understand why the chatbot failed and be able to optimize your chatbot experience. You can mine chatbot conversations to understand what your customers are asking about. So again, there's a tremendous amount of benefits to be able to roll out chatbots, but in a way that effectively supports the customer and the agent in being able to get their job done.
And Kate, a couple of quick questions here. We talk about chatbots, and we have an international audience, especially in the European continent. How advanced are chatbots when you talk about this line? Is it as advanced in English, or the other languages are still catching up? Where are they today?
So what I see is the other languages are still catching up because you need to build language models, intense topics. Those have been built out more in English than other languages. But again, there's so much excitement and effort in the chatbot domain that other languages are quickly catching up. But English by far is the most developed.
Got it. And one other question. This is regarding the whole challenge of the chatbots and the whole, it's completely moving the frontier for a lot of folks on the line. Might be new. They're probably trying. What are the common set of challenges, and what are the things, that key learnings that they can actually leverage to when they deploy in their own space?
So I always say, start small and plan for failure. You may want, and starting small, I also say, try your chatbots out with your agents, because if they fail with your agents, it's not a bad customer experience. Once your agents are comfortable with the experience that the chatbots are delivering, then you can roll them out to your customers. But have your chatbots deliver or be geared to a simple task, and then plan for failure. Always think that your customers are going to push the chatbots to the limits, and that they may start asking other questions, and you want to be able to allow a graceful escalation or a graceful handoff to an agent if the chatbot is not delivering the answer that the customer wants.
Got it. So, thank you, Kate. That's very helpful. But I just want to bring it up together in terms of, here's an interesting anecdote that I recently learned. One of our customers actually, once we launched WhatsApp as a channel, they activated it. And they immediately found that the number of tickets, or in this case, engagement, went up by 20%. And immediately there was panic in their management and everything. And they were like wondering, like, how good is this engagement? As we invest in multi-channel and chatbots, which almost provides an omnipresent, anytime, anywhere type of engagement, the engagement is bound to increase. What is the impact of it on the top line overall? What's your thoughts on this?
So it goes back to the way that we started the webinar about great customer experiences are able to impact top-line revenue, again, because great customer experiences influence the 3 dimensions of loyalty, which at Forrester we call retention, enrichment, and advocacy. Retention is customer churn. Enrichment is a customer buying more products, increasing their lifetime value, and advocacy is has an impact to drive second order sales. And so what we do at Forrester, we go a step further, and you can see this on the next slide. And it's something, we have a huge customer experience practice, and we've been doing this for over a decade, and we also have data based that's for many geographies as well as and many industries. So what we do is, and we've been, again, doing this for a decade, is that we measure the customer experience. And we have a methodology that's been tested. So we measure the customer experience that hundreds and hundreds of brands grouped into dozens and dozens of industries deliver. And then we build correlation models, and we test them with case study. And these correlation models quantify the top line revenue impact of increasing a customer's customer experience score by just 1 point. And this is what you're looking at on the screen here. These are the different industry verticals. This is if each of these verticals increased their customer experience score as measured by the Forrester formula by just 1 point, we understand the incremental revenue per customer. We understand the revenue impact over all their customers, and we are able to quantify the top line revenue impact by, again, decreasing customer churn, increasing customer lifetime value, increasing customer advocacy. to your question about how do we justify this, Arun, it's again all about the money, where great customer experiences correlate to top line revenue. And this is really important to keep in mind, because Arun, you've said this many times, our world is getting more complex. There's a lot more channels that are being rolled out, introduced in our consumer lives that customers expect to use as they interact with brands. And customers are interacting with us and their expectations are heightened. But what you can't do as a company is just throw bodies at the problem. You can't just add agents and agents to be able to interact with your customers to deliver these great customer experiences. And what you're seeing here is the projections of customer service teams to increase their headcount. And our data is showing is that 46% of contact center decision makers project that the number of agent seats to grow by 5 to 10% next year. 14% project to grow their headcount by more than 10%. And this is fundamentally not economically sustainable. And so what you have to do is, again, understand your customers want to engage with you over self-service, with over many more channels in an omni-channel way. But you have to reimagine your omni-channel operations, and you have to put self-service front and center, and then you have to automate wherever and whenever possible, and do this by keeping your customer expectations squarely in your line of sight. And so what we've done at Forrester is we've actually developed what we call a value chain for AI and automation, to think about how to preserve the customer experience and yet deliver experiences that are highly automated. So if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see our value chain. And so what you have to do is focus on making your customer service organizations as productive and efficient as possible, and use automation and AI to help optimize, for example, context routing or case classification or even agent scheduling. You also have to use automation and AI to reduce the friction in a customer's journey. For example, automatically escalating issues based on the intent of the inquiry, or context or sentiment, like we talked about chatbot conversations going awry, being able to detect this and automatically escalate to an agent. You have to deliver you have to use chatbots, again, to empower customers to self-help, or to arm agents, help agents be able to solve those harder questions that are getting to them. And you can even use AI and automation to proactively engage with your customers at the right time to serve up the right piece of content or advice or engagement wherever the customer is. And at the high end, we always think about preemptive service. If you really do use AI and automation to its fullest extent, you can really understand your customer and predict what issues they may have and preempt those issues by intervening, by doing the right thing for the customer. Anyways, that's how we think about it, Arun.
So, Kate, that's fantastic. So, the way I hear is you are almost saying that, considering the trends that we see in terms of omnipresent, omni-channel, increasing expectations, resistance to these technologies is almost futile. It's just more a question of not if, but when, and how well you deploy. Otherwise, the previous slide was pretty interesting to see headcount increases just to keep up the pace. That's just simply not a sustainable move. So really appreciate and thank you so much for sharing your learnings here, especially the frameworks and the data-driven insights. Pretty compelling. Back to you, Sunny.
Thank you guys, Kate and Arun. There were some really good takeaways there. So thank you for sharing your insights. Right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that. We are now going to go into our Q&A. We have just under 10 minutes left. So we have actually got a lot of really good questions. But before we do want to launch a very, very quick poll where we want to get your feedback on whether or not you found this webinar useful. We'd also like to learn, we'd also like to see whether you'd like to learn more about driving engagement to really impact that bottom line. So if you can please just participate in our poll very, very quickly, we will then just move on to our live Q&A. So I'll just give that a few seconds before we crack on. Awesome, thank you for that. Let's move on to our Q&A. Right, so I'm just going to read the questions out, and I guess Arun and Kate, if you guys can just jump in, that would be great. So we have a really good question from Amanda. Could you elaborate a bit on how agents can obtain better context while serving a customer or handling tickets?
Arun, do you want to explain that in the way Freshdesk does it?
Absolutely. So Sunny, I didn't get the last part. So it's when the agent gets better context. Can you repeat that, please?
So could you elaborate a bit on how agents can obtain better context while serving a customer or handling a ticket?
All right. So at the end of the day, we frame it as like there's a game we used to play as kids. It's called 20 Questions. Is asking the right questions to actually figure out what the problem is. So the way we see, oftentimes when a ticket lands on your desk, identifying what the problem with the least amount of questions is the key to this. Because once we identify what the problem is, the solutions are often simple. It could be as simple as sometimes we can't solve for it. That's okay. But the frustration builds up when you're trying to identify the problem. Now, when you break that down, let's say if you have data sitting in silos within the organization, let's say an e-commerce customer who is pinging about something, we quickly pull up the records to show the latest purchases, to say these are the purchases and this is one that's potentially in transit. So the agent already knows that this is probably what the customer is going to ask about instead of doing a very detailed discovery. And there is a lot of digital footprint that's left by the customer. For instance, they can go to your FAQ section and probably have already looked at a few articles. And instead of going through them, if you have the tools that allows you, like what Freshworks does, it can clearly say the agent, the customer purchased this product or service. The customer has already looked at these 3 articles or contacted you on these other channels, and here are the conversation the customer had with the bot, and so on. So that actually reduces the number of questions. Then the agent can actually get the context gathering in a more targeted manner that's not frustrating or repetitive for the customer. So this we see as a kind of what Kate mentioned as a tool-enabled, a bot-enabled agent who is actually much more powerful in the sense and how quickly to lock down the core issue. And the solution for that actually follows through much quicker.
Yeah, and at a higher level, you can do integrations, again, to some of your backend systems to understand, for example, the products that the customer has. Are you calling about your phone or this model of phone? To be able to understand past customer interactions over different channels, to be able to understand the health of the customer. And again, like Arun said, to be able to understand their journey. Is this an escalated interaction from a chatbot, what they've looked at on the web, and being able to present this journey information to the agent so they're able to quickly understand who the customer is, where they are in the journey, and their intent.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We have another question around attributing monetary value to good customer experience. So the question we have is, how do you put it into figures to show that good customer experience has led to an increase in spend from a particular customer?
So we have, again, that figure that showed the correlation between better customer experience and top line revenue. We can Forrester trace it down to the actual customer. We can trace it down to the aggregated customers. So we have hundreds and hundreds of case studies that look at companies who have gone through a customer experience transformation, and we benchmark them before and after, and we show how their new, and it could be new processes, new technologies, new customer engagement strategies altogether, how they've influenced top line revenue. So we have this by geography, we have it by industry, we have it down to the individual brand. For example, United Airlines, what transformation have they gone through, and how has it impacted their top line revenue, and how have their efforts actually, how good are they compared to some other airlines like Virgin, who have a reputation of great customer experience. So we have all that data on our website. We have this customer experience index. What we can't do is go down to the actual customer, but aggregated, we have that data, and we have lots and lots of case studies.
And I would add
if you're
to
interested,
that. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're interested, you can email me after the webinar. I can help point you to the right assets.
Fantastic. We can share it with the recording with everybody. So I will add one thing to that. I started our vision statement and about creating the wow moment. There is a lot of thought behind it because this is a very, very, very good question talking about customer experience and what's impact to the top line. What we have found, both as an experience as a customer ourselves and also in engaging with the thousands of customers, when the expectation is met, it rarely leads to a big shift. But when the expectations are exceeded, a simple surprising moment, when Kate talked about Virgin versus United and other airlines, and there is some amount of surprise element associated with a service provider like Virgin, or I will give an example of an American Express credit card. When I lost the card, my wallet, I lost a few cards. I called all of them. All of them did exactly what's meant to happen. They canceled the card. They sent me the new card. But American Express sent an email within 5 minutes to say, your credit card is on file with so many of the subscription services like your gym membership and your telephone bill. It might be worth actually contacting them to change it. Now, that was a wow moment for me because they don't have to do it, but they went a step beyond to do it. Now, I talked about this to so many people. So here I would like to throw a stat. And satisfied customer rarely talks about your experience to somebody else if you're thinking the support as a marketing. But a customer who has went through a wow experience actually talks to a lot of people. There is a stat which says something like 14 or 15 people on random when they have a good experience. So you have to aspire to create the wow experience if you want to actually push the lever of the top line impact even further than what it's normal with a normal experience.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We have a really good question from Elaine asking, are you noticing a difference between B2B and B2C with regards to how customers want to access support, or is there no longer a difference between the two groups?
There is a difference, and it's becoming less and less. And I don't think of it as B2B or B2C. I think of it as simple, straightforward interactions. That tends to be B2C. and I think about long-running interactions for highly considered purchases. So, for example, buying your health insurance. That's a B2C model, but it's actually a complex interaction. So I hope that makes sense. But for the simple interactions, we see those as very omnichannel, trending towards digital channels and new digital channels like messaging, WhatsApp, chat, SMS, dependent on where you are in the world, self-service knowledge, even in-app knowledge, if it makes sense. For the longer running, highly considered purchases, those tend to be more focused on voice, quick interaction, so chat, and then for the issues that are not time sensitive, email. They tend to be less of the social inquiries and less of the messaging types of interactions. But that's what I see. Arun, do you want to add any color?
I think you hit it straight on. I think it's the complexity is where we see the difference as well. Traditionally B2C tends to have a lot more transactional, like flight booking, flights on time, or ordering food, or things like that. But insurance, what you gave is a great example in a B2C context where it's complex. Whereas similarly in a B2B context, let's say we as ourselves as a software provider, people always ask us, how do I activate this feature? And it's in FAQ. It can be enabled by a bot. And we install our own bots to actually solve north of 30% of our transactions to be able to serviced by the bot itself. And these are really transactional, but from a B2B scenario. So it really depends on how complex versus how light and transactional it is.
Awesome. Thank you. We are coming to the top of the hour, but we actually have had a lot of good questions pouring in. So I am going to just take one more. And it's around, how do you sell the idea of investing in a good customer experience service or platform to executive management and and shareholders who are mainly concerned about profit? So, really creating a business case around delivering that good customer experience and the importance of it. How do you really sell this to your sort of leadership team?
Well, we have a whole framework where you can. A modern customer experience or customer service platform will actually make you a lot more efficient. So there are a tremendous amount of cost savings that you can realize by moving to a new platform. It will also support your interactions in an omnichannel way, allowing you to deliver better service. So the quality of service and customer satisfaction will increase, and that can also ultimately drive retention and revenue. Modern customer service solutions also allow you to be more compliant to company policies or perhaps the regulations. And so you're able to calculate the impact on not having to pay, like, for example, non-compliance fees. And modern technologies tend to be delivered via cloud solutions. And those have a tremendous number of advantages as well, cost advantages that can be quantified. And at Forrester, we have a business case template. I'm sure Freshworks does as well, to be able to lead you through an exercise to be able to quantify the benefit of moving to a new solution. Arun, do you want to answer it from your perspective?
Yes, I would love to add a few points. I think I would first question the premise that a modern integrated omni-channel software has to be expensive. our own reason to exist today for Freshworks is primarily to bust that myth and to provide this ground up integrated solution that we have built and continuously maturing, is to basically provide it at a value that it doesn't have to be rocket science to get many systems to stitch together. It doesn't have to be expensive and so on. So that's number one. Number two is if you care about your brand experience, like I said, resistance is futile in this case, because I think Kate clearly laid out earlier, if you want to even maintain your status quo and comply with the regulatory things and increase number of volume because of multitude of channels and so on and so forth, you will have to keep throwing bodies at it. So it's just by looking at the bottom line, you will not be able to sustain if you have an outdated system. Now, if you look at the customer experience and service as a marketing that can actually change the top line itself, the tools provide a vehicle for that. But to actually turn on the lever, the entire organization has to have a mindset and behavioral change as well to go the extra mile to create those pub experiences. These tools simply allow you to do that with a lot more ease than having to invest so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Arun. Right, guys, we have just run slightly over the hour now. So don't worry if we haven't answered your questions. We have had quite a few coming through. We will get in touch with you following this webinar to get your questions answered. We will also share the webinar recording with you. And if you do have any questions that you haven't asked here and you do want the answers to, get in touch with me and I will speak to the relevant person in Freshworks, and we'll speak to Kate to see if we can get your important question answered. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback. I know we had that poll, but if there is a topic that you really want to hear about, let us know and we can see if we can support you by covering the topic in a future webinar. We'd love to hear what it is you want to talk about and hear about from us. So as I said, the webinar recording will be sent out, but I'd like to thank Arun and Kate for joining us. It's been a great session, lots of takeaways. And guys, if you want to just give your goodbyes to everybody on this webinar.
Thanks, Kate, and thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Keep an eye out on our website for our webinar schedule, and we'll hear from you soon.